Our laws are so crazy, but one by one, we're finding ways, one by one.
For this video, we're going to take a look at Bart Sibrel's take on the accuracy of the moon landing photos using AI. Credit to Keith Hutton for this video inspiration. As far as the timing and context of this video, I just want to note that right now, Trump welcomed Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, to Alaska to have a summit concerning the war and other issues between Russia and the United States. So there are spaces on the subject, and it trends. Cowboy W2B tells us that Dan Scavino posted a B-2 stealth bomber flyover on July 4th. Today, Dan posted a B-2 stealth bomber flyover at the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. The delta between 7/4/25 and 8/15/25 is 1 month, 11 days, 111. And then he brings our attention to Entheos. Follow the 111. Seems noteworthy. Now, I wasn't thinking that was a very big deal. I was like, okay, 111. Any other connections and significance? But then I scrolled down, and then I see this post by Into Thin Air, another account. And he says in this post, this is not a coincidence. And look at this. It shows Trump and Putin standing next to each other with a BBC News heading, Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson, 11/11. So right at time 11/11. Fitting with the 1 month, 11 day tweet just above. In terms of numerology, 11 is a master number, and it's the master intuitive. 11 is the most intuitive of all the numbers. It represents illumination, a channel to the subconscious, insight without rational thought, sensitivity, nervous energy, shyness, and practicality. It is a dreamer. It walks the edge between greatness and self-destruction. It represents the most elevated expression of male and female energy. So back to the subject at hand, the Keith Hutton clip links to top AI network determines AI Apollo 11 moon photos are unreal. So for the subject at hand, I'm going to show you a clip from the Danny Jones Bart Sibrel interview where Bart mentions something I was not aware of concerning what the nations China and Russia knows about the United States claims on space travel.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't want to do it because you're claiming they want the blackmail. They don't want to.
They made an agreement, just like my friend in the Chinese Space Agency, not to publicly say the moon missions are fake in exchange for who knows what. And China, it's in exchange for space technology that Congress forbid to give them. And Russia, who knows why. He doesn't look surprised, and he looks scared that the truth might come out.
That is very interesting. So China has a promise of technology in the blackmail to not tell about the truth of the U.S. moon missions. And Russia has something else. I soon realized there were basic facts needed to even begin to frame this correctly. Then there's this clip I came across by AJ, space base already being built on the dark side of the moon.
And it was, tied into other groups Trump uses. People can probably imagine the names, big security groups, and we're doing private security for him as well. Because Trump has that. Overwatching the other stuff that goes on. He didn't have that when he got shot in Butler, so he brought it back. And you got Eric Prince and all that stuff. And so, one day we come in from a trip and he's in here and he goes, listen, I'm going to tell you a story. It's really interesting. A month or so ago, I was gone. I was up there with Musk, and we had this whole 5-6 hour meeting in the Oval Office with Trump, and they closed everything off, took everybody out. And man, they had it up on the big screens. They rolled in, and Elon has already got 3D printers and already the beginnings of a big base to launch to Mars on the dark side of the moon. And they've got, and I said, really, how they powered? He goes, that's a good question. How do you think they power it? And I go, nuclear? And he goes, well, they got a lot of stuff. I don't know. But it was just amazing. And Trump signed off on it right there, and it's all secret. And I went, well, with your history and your past, because people that I knew it, you got led like assassination teams for the CIA, said, that's really interesting. Because if that's all true and classified, we get in a lot of trouble. And he said, well, they just wanted me to tell you about it. And thought you might want to know. I go, am I supposed to talk about it? Well, don't really say my name, but yeah. And see, people, that sounds crazy, but remember, 5 days, this is from his source inside the campaign, before Kennedy announces, I said he's going to be out on the West Coast.
And so his source had also mentioned to me this interest various superpowers have in the dark side of the moon, whether it's for mining or energy development. I was inspired by this section of the video to search for the Alex Jones clip.
And they were asking the head of NASA if we're going to be doing the same thing, sending probes to the dark side to map it and figure stuff out the same way the Chinese are doing it. And he said, no, we have no reason to do that.
Well, that guy, I think his name was Bill, He said a backside of the moon is dark all the time, which is completely wrong. Same like the front side. It's dark and light every 14 days. So the administrator of NASA doesn't even know that there's light and dark on the backside of the moon. And then,
So I wasn't sure about that. So I then searched the term Bill NASA Dark Side Moon on X, and that led me to this Alex Jones interview. It reminded me of some other interesting stuff. I did ask Grok the question if Bill said something to the effect that the dark side of the moon is always in darkness. Grok found the context and answered in what did happen in May 2021 House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing on NASA's budget. Bill Nelson discussed the Artemis program's focus on the lunar South Pole. He said something to the lines of, "We go to the South Pole, that is the darkest. There are so many craters. It's the darkest part of the moon. That's where the water is." And so he was referring to the shadowed craters at the pole, not the far side as a whole. It kind of rhymes. So it's important to quote people accurately. In the past, I've talked about a somewhat mysterious character who goes by V. One notable video, DJ Shadowmind, The Synchronous Journey from Austin Steinbart to Super V Part 2. A source was told by this character a few years ago to look into the so-called Selene project. My source waited all the way until the last week to do so. The European Technical Safety Organization Network describes the Selene project. The article notes that there is growing international interest to go to the moon to stay, so this interest prompted the ENEA and the Italian Space Agency to engage in a feasibility study regarding a so-called surface nuclear reactor as a power source for lunar outpost. The study was established to find NEA's role in the field as glue between the Italian nuclear and space industrial and scientific communities. Here you see the acronym for Selene. And so my source indicates to me that this development is significant because right after she learned about this project, the American-based space agency NASA then declared its intent to put a nuclear reactor on the moon by the mid-2030s to so-called power the lunar economy. So the source learned about the Selene project first, and then afterwards, the declaration came from the US Space Agency, suggesting seemingly some type of coordination. Though I believe this is really more about the deeper nature of synchronicities. I did input the search term NASA Dark Side China, and it brought up this not very believable photo of the backside of the moon by China's Chang 6 probe. I'm saying, of course, this can be real, but the way it looks appears to be sort of like an artwork. I then came across this unmanned probe video showing a small Chinese flag. I found this video to also be a bit unbelievable, mainly because of the camera perspective showing the probe in this view, as well as the background appearing almost as if a digital landscape in a contrast with this small part of the foreground. However, I'm sure there may be an explanation about the special type of camera that resulted in this type of imagery. For longtime viewers, remember the Chinese Space Agency inspired a video regarding the true appearance of low Earth orbit that revealed this very interesting footage. And so I consider that not only is moon exploration competitive, but even the field of space itself has a perception-based warfare element between the nations. The dark side China term also brought up this post describing China's destiny among the stars. Where is this from? Is this term familiar? I've covered the 4th PSYOP group in several older videos. They had a video production called Among the Stars, but they removed it from their website. Still other uploaders, like this one, chose to preserve the video. The video starts off from a perspective behind the moon, and then you see the Earth as the camera pans. So this shows a special point of emphasis on the dark side of the moon by the 4th POG. So now going back to Bart Zabrell.
There somewhere, a congressman said, I think about 2 months ago, we need to beat China to the moon. And I think it's during that UFO disclosure clip.
So you're saying that the dark side of the moon is not always dark?
And so he goes on to explain about the dark side of the moon. So again, I was told by an anonymous source about competition for resources on the moon. There's also an obvious tactical military advantage for controlling certain regions of the moon. Media sources confirm that President Vladimir Putin sought to boost AI work in Russia in order to fight the Western monopoly on AI. So Putin participated in a plenary session of the international conference AIJ 2023. It was this conference where we got this controversial video that makes claims about US space travel to the moon. Here's the video. He goes on to say that the neural network has analyzed a lot of data, including the light and dark contrast. And it believes the photo is very interesting. So this special Google AI that the public lacks access to is supposedly able to analyze a photo and determine the insert parts. So here in this example, the foreground and the astronaut are considered to be inserts. The AI supposedly was also able to make the claim that the photo was generated by using a miniature movie set on the moon's surface, simulating the moon's surface. Here's an example given for the movie GoldenEye. Bart Sibrel goes on to say that there was an article written about this finding of Google AI. It's a Russian article. When one tries to click on the article, an SSL inspection prompt appears. This SSL inspection prompt warns the user that the URL has suspected child abuse and exploitation. And by proceeding further, you are aware and agree that this action will give the government access to your data. And so he posits that this is like a scare tactic to prevent people from looking into this issue. Bart Sibrel makes this comment about Richard Nixon towards the end of his video.
Didn't Nixon visit Russia and China around that time? Didn't he give wheat sales to the mortal enemy Russia below cost? Didn't he suck up to the Chinese leader also during the Apollo program? See, I think they found out, and they're blackmailing us, which is a much better use of the information than just blurting it out.
So I went to confirm this with Grok. Is there evidence on a record that previous President Richard Nixon provided wheat sales to Russia below normal cost during his administration? Keep in mind, this is during the Cold War. Grok, yes, there is substantial historical evidence on a record indicating Richard Nixon's administration, 69 to 74, the United States facilitated large-scale wheat sales to Soviet Russia at prices effectively below the prevailing market prices, primarily through government subsidies and export programs. This episode is commonly referred to as the Great Grain Robbery of 72. And so this contention is that it has to do with the embarrassment of the Apollo moon missions, foreign nations keeping quiet through facilitated blackmail. I did try to translate text on the screen, however, Grok did not do so well in the translations. The text is very blurry, so I will likely continue with other AI applications. I thank you to your attention to this matter. Some of these concepts, such as creating nuclear reactors on the moon, are a bit concerning, given our track record, given certain mysteries such as the lunar wave and all the lies we've been told about the moon. We still have to proceed many protective layers to get to the truth about the moon. I do plan to put out more content, so if you're interested, please give me a follow on X and turn your notifications on. Thank you.